Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is off. We begin this Tuesday morning with the latest out of the Middle East, nearly 24 hours into the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports. Now, initially, President Trump threatened to block all ships traveling through the Strait of Hormuz. Then the U.S. military clarified it would only block Iranian ports in that critical shipping route. Well, this morning, a Chinese tanker was one of the first of two U.S. sanctioned ships to pass through the strait since this blockade began. Beijing issued its most forceful criticism yet of the U.S. action in Iran. It's calling the blockade dangerous and irresponsible. And Iran's armed forces accused America of piracy. The global economy is trying to make sense of President Trump's latest negotiating tactic, with stock prices rallying yesterday and oil prices dipping overnight. Still, though, traffic through the Strait of Hormuz remains at a near standstill. We have a team of correspondents joining us from overseas and here at home with the latest on the ceasefire deal and the war's ongoing political and economic impact. First, let's go to NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley in Tel Aviv. Matt, good morning. So after 24 hours, what's this blockade of Iranian ports doing to traffic in the strait? And how is China, which does count heavily on the oil there, responding?
Yeah, well, China blasted that decision by the U.S., calling it a reversion to the law of the jungle, or reverting to the law of the jungle, as you said. China is one of the few countries that still purchases Iranian oil, and it's a major way for China to access much-needed oil for its economy, which is always growing. One of the real complications here is the hypocrisy, and this is one of the things that the Iranians have been pointing out, as well as the Chinese, that the U.S. is actually going to be adding more economic pain to the world, already suffering from the blockage of the Strait of Hormuz by the Iranians, now another blockade by the Americans. Interestingly, when we talk about oil, it is a globally traded commodity. So even though this new blockade from the United States side is only going to be presumably blocking oil or any other goods going to and from Iranian ports, just blocking Iran from benefiting from its oil also means that it's limiting the supply of oil, of Iranian oil, on the global stage, which means that the global price of oil will be affected negatively. That means that President Trump's method to try to force Iran to unblock the Strait of Hormuz in order to free up global trade could actually make oil more expensive and snarl global trade even more.
So, Matt, President Trump did announce this blockade after the U.S. and Iran failed to reach a long-term ceasefire deal over the weekend during those peace talks in Pakistan. We have to remember, though, the two-week ceasefire is still in place. It's set to expire next week, a week from tomorrow. So do we know what's next for the negotiations?
Yeah, we have been hearing from various sides of these negotiations that there are plans to meet again, or at least to continue these discussions. Remember, as you mentioned, this was all about actually extending the ceasefire that, in theory, was still in place and that, in theory, remains in place. But part of the complication here is that that ceasefire itself is fraying. One of the real issues that's really coming up here is the question of Lebanon. Now, remember that from just a couple of days ago. The Pakistanis who had been mediating these negotiations insisted that Lebanon would be part of this ceasefire, that Israel was going to be expected to stop its offensive against Hezbollah in Lebanon. And then we heard from the Israelis saying that no, as a matter of fact, Lebanon is a separate case and we're going to continue our offensive in Lebanon. But that is a big issue because today we're actually seeing, really for the first time in recent memory, direct negotiations between Lebanese officials and Israeli officials, this time in Washington, D.C. It's low-level negotiations, basically between Israel's ambassador to Washington and Lebanon's ambassador to Washington. But it's a real sign that these two countries are coming together and discussing. The problem is, Hezbollah isn't controlled by the Lebanese government. As long as the conflict in Lebanon continues, we can expect that there's going to be major instability to that ceasefire between Israel and the U.S. on one side and Iran on the other.
All right, Matt Bradley reporting in Tel Aviv. Matt, thank you so much. Let's bring in NBC News business and economy reporter Ali Canal to discuss the ongoing economic impact of all of this. It's fair to say a roller coaster in these oil prices.
Oh, yeah.
Help us understand why the up and then the down. Where do things stand right now?
Well, traders are reacting to these headlines in real time, whether or not it's a blockade, a ceasefire, or a Chinese tanker getting through. A question in the minds of these traders is this going to be a contained shock to supply, a one-time time impact here? Or is this going to be a more sustained issue down the line? So we're seeing traders really wrestle with this question, considering how important the Strait of Hormuz is when we look at the global oil market, like Matt was just laying out. So until there's serious resolution to this war, or until we get more clarity about reopening the strait and getting that supply back on the market, you're going to see the back and forth when it comes to these oil prices.
So that's the issue the traders are worried about, but everyone who's just filling up their tank when they go to the gas station right now, they're worried about gas prices. We know they've gone up so much already in the last few weeks. Is what's happening here is have the potential to slow down how quickly those prices go up, or what might happen here?
Short answer is not really. We still have gas trading significantly above $4 a gallon. That's a psychologically important level when we think about affordability. Now, if we look back to pre-war, gas was trading below $3 a gallon nationally. And the reason why is oil prices. Even though we've come down a little bit on the price of oil, we are still close to trading around $100 a barrel. Pre-Iran war, we were trading closer to $67 a barrel. So we still need a significant decline in oil prices for that to impact gas prices. And remember, it's not just gas. Oil also affects the cost of diesel, which impacts shipping, air travel, even food prices. So this is hitting consumers on multiple fronts.
Let's talk about the volatility on Wall Street. Yesterday morning, we were looking at stock prices down, but then they ended up performing pretty well. We're actually almost back to where we were before the war started. What was it that happened yesterday? How are things shaping up today?
Yeah, stocks finished the day really strong. You have the S&P 500 erasing all its war-related losses tied to Iran. It's actually positive on the year right now. And this comes as those oil prices remain elevated. Even in futures trading, we're up a little bit, slightly mixed. But my sources on Wall Street tell me that this boils down to a few things. One, this isn't a worst-case scenario. Investors were bracing for direct hits on Iran's energy infrastructure. Remember, it wasn't that long ago that President Trump was threatening to eliminate an entire civilization. So that was the worst case scenario. So this blockade, while it's disruptive, it's not the worst case for investors. Number two, we've seen this playbook before, whether you look back to the COVID pandemic, Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Investors tend to look past a lot of these geopolitical turmoil because they're constantly looking into the future. They're not just pricing what's happening now, they're very much forward looking. So at least if you look at the markets, they're looking through this and thinking we're going to get to the end of the tunnel here and that things will improve. And then finally, this is a big one, earnings. Earnings are still strong. Analysts still have high expectations. So until we see that direct hit to profit, I don't think you're going to see a deterioration in the stock market, because earnings ultimately is what powers stocks higher. So a lot of things at play. It's a little counterintuitive, a little bit confusing, but investors are really hoping that we're going to see a resolution at some point soon.
And the bottom line is, even this week alone, Iran's not the only thing investors are looking at. There's a lot of information coming out and a lot that's shaping our economy.
Yes, an earnings season just kicking off. There's a lot of economic data that we continue to parse through. So this is one element in a lot of different things that investors have their minds on.
All right, Allie Canal, good to have you with us. Thank you. Now, the war has sparked an unlikely feud between the president and the Pope. Now, President Trump is refusing to apologize for his extraordinary social media attack against Pope Leo. It's become a flashpoint for the president, causing even some of his strongest supporters to turn against him. The tirade, in apparent response to the Pope's anti-Iran war stance, sparked rebuke by some world leaders and members of the Catholic Church. The president then doubled down yesterday, saying the pontiff was wrong. The Pope is currently in Algeria as part of his Africa tour. He said he will continue to speak out against war, and did so during his speech there yesterday.
By respecting the dignity of everyone and allowing yourselves to be moved by the pain of others, instead of multiplying misunderstandings and conflicts, you can surely become protagonists of a new chapter in history. Today, this is more urgent than ever in the face of continuous violations of international law and neo-colonial tendencies.
The Pope will continue his tour of Africa, walking in the footsteps of the founder of his religious order, St. Augustine, and celebrating Mass later today. A pair of lawmakers from both sides of the aisle are stepping down after backlash over sexual misconduct allegations. Embattled Republican Representative Tony Gonzalez says he plans to retire from Congress today. The Texas congressman announced the move in a post on X yesterday, saying there is a season for everything. Gonzalez was under investigation by the House Ethics Committee after he admitted to having an affair with a former senior aide in his office. She later died by suicide. His announcement came shortly after Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell said he will resign. He's facing sexual assault and misconduct claims, which just a day earlier forced him to end his bid for California governor. We get the latest from NBC News Chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles.
Facing the threat of a pending House Ethics Committee investigation and expulsion, embattled Congressman Eric Swalwell says he will leave office, answering the call from a wide swath of both Republicans and Democrats urging him to step down following allegations of sexual assault and misconduct. Swalwell continuing to deny many of the allegations, calling them false, but adding, "I must take responsibility and ownership for the mistakes I did make." The California Democrat also made note of the plans to potentially kick him out of office. Expelling anyone in Congress without due process within days of an allegation being made is wrong, Swalwell said in a statement, but adding he knew it was time for him to go. It's also wrong for constituents to have me distracted from duties. Therefore, I plan to resign my seat in Congress. Swalwell was a leading candidate for governor of California.
The next governor has to be a fighter protector for all Californians.
But suspended his campaign in response to the backlash. His resignation will end the threat of a congressional probe, but he is still facing the possibility of a criminal investigation in New York, where one of the alleged incidents took place. Multiple women have accused Swalwell of sexual misconduct and assault. One woman telling the San Francisco Chronicle that she had several sexual encounters with the congressman while working in his office. She also accused him of sexually assaulting her twice while she was too intoxicated to consent. NBC News has not verified her allegations, but it confirmed her identity and that she worked for Swalwell from 2019 until 2021. This accuser sharing her story with CNN.
He said to me, "You're right. It's probably not good for a congressman to be caught with his pants down."
Ryan Nobles, NBC News.
Beyond those resignations, lawmakers are back in session in Washington with a lot on their plates this week. They're gearing up to tackle a growing list of major policy battles, including an end to the partial government shutdown. Congress still does need to reach a deal to fund the Department of Homeland Security, which has been shuttered now for a record 59 days. Also on the agenda, a potential vote to curb President Trump's authority when it comes to taking further military action against Iran. Let's break it down with NBC News senior national political reporter Sahil Kapoor, who joins us now. Sahil, good morning. So before they left for that 2-week recess, lawmakers had tabled 2 competing DHS funding bills, hoping to end the partial government shutdown. Republicans were even fighting among themselves over how to move forward. So right now, where do things stand?
Well, Joe, today marks 2 months to the day that DHS was shut down, a record-long government shutdown. And remember, this is all because of a stalemate over immigration enforcement operations. Democrats won't fund ICE and the Border Patrol without reining them in terms of what they can do with mass deportations and raids, and Republicans are refusing to grant those concessions. So what now? Republican leaders have finally settled on a path forward after clashing amongst themselves. What they plan to do is fund all of DHS without ICE and CBP through the normal appropriations process and pursue a separate party line bill through the budget reconciliation process, which can bypass the filibuster to fund ICE and CBP without any Democratic support. And Democrats in this case are not going to get any of the reforms and the concessions they want either, even some of the more minor ones that the White House had sort of indicated that they would be interested in. Now, the timeline is an issue here because House Republicans are still angry that the Senate, in their view, is jamming them. What they plan to do is wait for the Senate to pass at least the budget resolution, which is the blueprint to begin work on this piece of legislation, and then the House can take up the Senate-passed DHS bill. Still a number of steps to get there, so it might not happen for a couple of weeks. And meanwhile, DHS still shut down. Paychecks, some of them have come because of an executive order by President Trump, but it's not clear how much longer.
Of course, we know those paychecks going to those TSA workers, which has been helping at the airports over the last week or so. Sahil, what else are you watching for on Capitol Hill right now?
A couple of things. One big thing coming up later this week is a war powers vote on ending the Iran war. Senate Democrats plan to force this, I'm told, either this Wednesday or Thursday. They need a simple majority in the Senate to pass it. It's going to be an interesting vote in terms of where Republicans stand. Has there been any movement among GOP senators as the war continues to be very unpopular, in fact, grows more unpopular in some recent polls? There's also the question of FISA, Section 702. It's expiring in about a week. That's the law allowing the government to conduct warrantless surveillance of foreigners living abroad. This is a perennial fight between proponents of the law who want to reauthorize it each year as is, and other lawmakers who want privacy protections, who say this enables the government inevitably to sweep up some data on Americans. And finally, there was the question of House expulsions. Eric Swalwell and Tony Gonzalez were at the top of the list. There are others as well who are in some hot water and have ethical challenges. That one might be extinguished, at least somewhat, by the fact that these two men have agreed to willingly resign. Still unclear, Joe, when exactly they're going to quit. Neither Swalwell nor Gonzalez said in their statements what day is going to be their last in the House of Representatives.
Sahil, while we have you, let's turn back to the White House. A moment ago, we talked a bit about the president's clash with the Pope. That's sort of a big picture debate over the war in Iran. But there's also now this now deleted religious themed post from the president's social media page. It's creating controversy. It featured an AI image that appeared to depict him as like a Christ-like savior. The post has been widely condemned, including from some conservatives. On top of that, 9,000 users on Truth Social liked a comment calling on the president to take it down and, quote, offer an apology to Christians for this mockery. So with all that said, what's the president saying about all this controversy?
Well, first off, the president is admitting he posted this. This, of course, got quite a bit of criticism from the right, including from some of Trump's usual prominent allies who said it was inappropriate to mock God in this manner, that maybe he should show some humility. Here's what Trump said after he deleted the post. Take a listen.
It was me. I did post it, and I thought it was me as a doctor, and had to do with Red Cross as a Red Cross worker there, which we support. And only the fake news could come up with that one.
As it happens, it wasn't just the media. It was also Republican senators who usually support Trump who found this highly inappropriate. There's Senator John Curtis, the Utah Republican, who called it offensive, called it blasphemous, who called it inappropriate and said there's no reason to go there. Senator Josh Hawley, who I spoke to, said it was wise of the president to take this down. He said, quote, "In my view, there's only one Jesus," end quote. Joe?
All right. If you're going to claim it's a doctor, at least make a stethoscope or something that makes it look like a doctor's there. All right, Sahil, thank you so much. Appreciate your reporting. A suspect is in custody in connection with the Molotov cocktail attack on the home of OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. The suspect is now facing a charge of attempted murder. NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky has the details from California.
Authorities say these surveillance images capture suspect Daniel Moreno Gama. Clutching a flaming Molotov cocktail, he's accused of hurling at the California home of OpenAI CEO Sam Altman.
This was not spontaneous. This was planned, targeted, and extremely serious.
Federal agents raiding a home outside Houston early this morning where the FBI says Moreno Gama lived. He's now charged with attempted murder and possession of a deadly weapon. Authorities say the 20-year-old traveled from Texas to California and launched his attack on Altman's residence around 3:37 a.m. last Friday, catching a driveway gate on fire. The criminal complaint going further, sharing he then traveled to OpenAI's San Francisco headquarters, where around 5 a.m., Moreno Gama retrieved a chair and used it to strike the glass doors, and according to security personnel on site, stated he was there to burn it down and kill anyone inside. Altman, the head of one of the world's most influential artificial intelligence companies, posted this image of his family, stating he hopes it might dissuade the next person from throwing a Molotov cocktail at our house, no matter what they think about me. Police arresting the suspect at OpenAI's headquarters, where investigators say he had a multi-page document espousing views that opposed artificial intelligence, as well as multiple executives at AI companies. Morgan Chesky, NBC News.
All right, time now for a check on your morning news now weather. Millions are facing a severe weather risk today. Meteorologist Angie Lassman is here with the latest. So I can't turn off the heat in my building yet, and we don't have the air yet. So I'm strategizing like fans or
any way to keep cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the case for a lot of folks across, much of the country, Joe, where we're dealing with these potentially record highs. And we've also got some severe weather to talk about. 'Tis the season for all of this. So let's start with the severe weather, where we've got this big batch of moisture kind of just sliding across the Great Lakes. Most of the heaviest of the rain is out into Canada. But again, looking back to Chicago, you've had quite an active morning, some thunderstorms there. You can see plenty of lightning working across Michigan earlier today. And this is going to be kind of working its way to the east through the day today. But we're really going to be keeping an eye on this frontal system that's stretching all the way from New England down to New Mexico. This is going to help us ramp up those thunderstorms later this afternoon and into the evening hours for a good chunk of the country. Notice that we have that broader slight risk stretching from Texas all the way into the Great Lakes. But we've also got this enhanced risk that is centered right around Cedar Rapids and Chicago. That means that the hail, a couple of strong tornadoes, and those strong wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour are going to be possible for that area. It's going to be afternoon and evening kind of timing for you. And then we continue this multi-day severe weather threat as we get into tomorrow as well. Some thunderstorms in the morning across the Great Lakes. And then again, we ramp up that activity into the afternoon and early evening hours for a larger chunk of the country, stretching again from the Midwest all the way back to Texas. We've got Oklahoma City, Kansas City, and Chicago included in that. All the threats on the table. It looks like hail will be our main threat, but keeping an eye on that, including the wind gusts and the tornadoes as well. Now, we've also got some fire alerts. So this is centered across parts of the middle of the country. We've got the really warm conditions, we've got the dry conditions, and we've really got gusty winds up to 45 miles per hour. So notice we've got those red flag warnings and fire weather advisories up at this time. Speaking of those warm temperatures, here's what we're talking about. We've got a lot of potential records today. A lot of folks, just broadly speaking, ending up into the 80s. This is that warm weather that so many people were hoping for, but maybe not quite as warm as what we're going to get. We've got upper 80s across the Northeast. Norfolk heads to 89 degrees. They'll flirt with the potential record that they have for this date of 90 degrees. We've got upper 80s across Nashville, potentially a record in Cincinnati. We'll see Peoria as well into the mid 80s. So you get the picture. It's going to be hot. It's going to be this way at least for the next couple of days as well. 90s on tap, actually, for Wednesday and Thursday in Washington, D.C. You get a little bit of a cool down, I guess, on Friday as you enter into those mid-80s. But it's 90s for Raleigh, for Roanoke, upper 80s for Cincinnati. Pittsburgh tops out into those mid-80s as well as we get through Wednesday. So it's a warm one over the next couple of days. And even Nashville, you end up into the 90s on Friday. So a bit of that warm air. We've got the severe weather. We've got the fire weather. Honestly, it's all on the table except for snow at this point.
Right. Or spring, I guess, for the East Coast right now.
Right over some spots.
It'll probably snow next week, though. You never know. All right, Angie,
you never know.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.